We're going to focus on the difference between a detail view and a drafting view. A detail view is, first of all, details are vitally important to Revit, to any project we're working on in Revit. And for as great as Revit is, we do get to a point where the modeling isn't enough. And so what we need to do is, at the smaller scale drawings, we need to begin to fall back on some of our old drafting skills. One way we can do this is through importing of AutoCAD-based or other CAD programs-based files, and I've covered that in a separate video. But with a detail view, what we can do is we can create a section at a specific location. The view will show us the model data or model information at that section, and then we can enhance it with annotation objects. A drafting view is a blank view, and we would use annotation commands to, such as line, text, fill regions, to enhance or add data to that view for use in your project. We would then take that view and reference it to some specific aspect or location in our model. So let's take a look at a detail view. I'm going to go in this project, which is Modern Hotel Detailing. I'm going to go to floor 1. And I'm going to zoom in on this area right here. And you'll see there's already a section marker there. And that is used or created using the section command. And if you want to have a look at that section, double click on that arrow, and you can see it's a section that goes all the way through the building from footing all the way to roof. Now, if we wanted that to be focused on a specific area, we could always modify the crop region or the window around that view, like so. Modify the scale and start enhancing it with annotation objects. Or, going back to floor 1, we can create, you notice, let me undo all that modification I just did. Now, the reason that the symbol disappeared is because by modifying the edges of that view in the section view, the actual section view no longer incorporated this particular floor. Therefore, the symbol disappeared. But let me hide this in view just to get it out of the way. If I look at the section command, under modify, under view. If I go to the section command and expand the under properties, you'll see we've got building section, wall section, but we also have detail. And a detail section will, when you place it, will only focus on the information in this particular plan view. So you place it just like any other section line. Here's how it looks different as far as visually is concerned. There's no arrow on the bubble, and the other tag end is in line with the line versus this, which is at 90 degrees from the line. Over in our project browser, you'll now see we have a category detail views. You see it says detail 0. That's the new view that was created with this new detail. So if I double click on it, on the bubble, this is what that view looks like. So the top and bottom of the view is already set just to that area. What we're looking at here is specifically the modeling data that view is displaying or is in that particular view. And so you'll see there's wall, you'll see there's floor, there's more wall. Be careful. I've seen people who have gone into this and started deleting things because they think they're making things look clearer and being able to add the information that they want to make this a detail. But if you start deleting model information, you're removing it from the entire project, so don't do that. I'm going to turn on thin lines so we get a better sense of what all this looks like. The scale that you'll see down here matches the scale of the original floor plan, so that's definitely not going to be the scale we're going to want on this view when we go to place it in a sheet or on a sheet. So let's take a look at 1 inch equals a foot. Oh, that's pretty small. Let's do ½ inch equals a foot, like so. Yeah, that looks better. We can always modify that later. Let's just tighten that up a bit. And so there's our detail. So a couple things. This is a lousy detail to pick because if you recall in this project, the main floor actually goes beyond the building. All right, the main floor, for some reason, they decided they wanted the main floor to be the floor also on the exterior of the building. So there are a number of things we would have to do in order to modify this, including getting rid of some of the lines here and here. We could do that with fill regions or not fill regions, but if we go to annotate, we could create void or masking regions. We could then do that. And so now that line has been removed. Masking regions, by the way, do not affect datums such as level lines. And same with this line right here. It's a little dicier because of the hatching pattern, but it is possible. And no doubt there is a better way of doing it. But you find that in Revit quite often, oops, I didn't hit the rectangle tool. It's my bad. In Revit, you do whatever works to get the job done because time is money. So if you look at this from a distance placed on a sheet, that little gap probably isn't going to be all that noticeable. You can always adjust it just down a little bit, up a little bit like that, and it's even less noticeable now. Oops, it's so less noticeable you can't, it doesn't even work. See if that one works. Yeah, that probably didn't work. Still not working. Now you have to play around with that sizing. It's probably not working all that well because of the fact that we need to look at this with thin lines turned off. See? Masking regions also have lines attributed to them as far as borders are concerned. So you're going to need to adjust these. If you pick a void region, you can edit the boundary, and when you select those lines, you can always pick, let's see here. It looks like it's already set to invisible lines, so I think what we're actually looking at here is the top and bottom of the thick line. So yeah, I'm gonna have to just keep playing with it to hide it. Here we go. And if all that other I think all that other stuff, the little gap you see is not gonna make a huge difference. This one, however, is pretty irritating, so we need to just adjust that like so. There you go. All right, well, that took a little bit of time. Let's look at some of the things that we can add to this view. We do have detail components. For example, well, actually, no, let's go back to fill regions. So we've looked at void regions, or sorry, masking regions, filled region. Let's say we need to add here a concrete pattern. So if I go to properties, so I've selected the filled region command, I can click here and select a style such as concrete. And then if I select the rectangle tool, I can pick and pick. And now I've placed a hatching pattern for concrete there. Just to show you some of the other things that can be placed in a view that may not necessarily be related to what we're working on right here, we have what are called detail components. And so with the detail component, in the annotate ribbon, we've got component. And if I, actually let me escape from that, let me just show you. We have detail component, repeating component, and legend component. Legend component is grayed out because you need to be in a legend view to be able to use that. So detail component is, you can see here that by default we have a beam, a wide flange beam. We have a couple of other things here. We have concrete block. But usually what we're going to end up doing is load family. And when you go into load family, it takes you to the, in our case, the default Canada folder of components. And we do have detail items here. It's broken down into our different division numbers. So if we wanted to, let's say, go into wood and plastic, subfolders, architectural woodwork, and you see things like trim, all kinds of, and these are 2D objects. That means they will not show up in your 3D model. They're for detailing only. And again, I'm playing around with this detail. I'm adding things that do not properly belong there. Well, let's take a look at this. Picture molding section. And there it is. So we can basically build our model, or sorry, our detail, using these different 2D components, and there are many of them to work with. A repeating detail is just that. If you take a look here, we have CMU and brick. So rather than placing the object one by one by one, you can begin placing it and drag, and it will multiply itself based on how far you actually are clicking. Same thing applies to brick. And you can see that the appropriate hatching pattern has been placed. That's a repeating detail. Here's something else that's kind of neat, and that is bad insulation. We have bad insulation as a detail component. And in our options bar, we can define how wide that bad insulation is going to be. So let's say it's going to be in a 2x4 wall. So you can click and it will give you bad insulation. If you needed that to be some other thickness, 5.5 inches, you can modify that width. So that's kind of a neat, it's a specialized repeating detail because it's, you can vary the width. Whereas CMU or brick, you know, the size is fixed. So those are some repeating details. Also, there's a really neat, another really nifty detail component is a break line. If you go into the component command, load family, you're going to find it in Division 01 General, and it's break line. And what it is a combination line segments and masking region. So if I hit the space bar, I can rotate it. And if it turns out that you positioned it so the void, or so the mask is in the wrong location, you could always rotate it. And you can see there the lines are placed and the hatching pattern has been, I just hit escape a couple times there. You can see that the hatching pattern of the concrete is now masked. Now you can still see the top and bottom lines representing the top and bottom of the slab, but when you click on your break line, you can stretch this out. Now you have appropriate break line. And so this is extremely useful for obvious reasons. Let me put one across the top here as well. And I'll hit escape. Let me just modify the boundaries of break line. Go. And these break lines do not cover over, the masking region does not cover over datums. That's why you can still see the floor line. So let me throw one more here. You see there, my fill region, sorry, my masking region is in the wrong side of the break line. So I'm going to use the rotate command. There we go. And let me just move this down to an appropriate location. Just widen this out. And there we go. Break lines. There is a tagging feature. I don't really like it very much, and it doesn't seem to be working very well with this particular detail, but you know what these objects are is has properties, and one of the properties would be the name. If you go to the tag command, let me just escape here. So in the end, tag by category, you should be able to click on an object and have it tag for you. The detail components, for example, the repeating detail objects like this, but it's not actually filling in information. And plus, I'll be absolutely honest with you that these particular tags don't look very good. They would not suit a standard. So I would just as soon just take the regular text command and label things. So that brings us to the end of this. A really neat detail item. Let me go to detail component, load family, and I'm going to go to division 01 general, a break line. Very important feature, or very important object to be able to place in a model, in a view. And what's really nifty about this is it's a combination series of lines and masking region.